Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's good to see you all. Welcome to our early math initiative, family engagement, COP #1, our Count, Play, Explore. We're still getting used to the name of our initiative, which is shifting from the California Early Math Initiative to Count, Play, Explore. And so we'll just be patient with each other as we get used to referring to this initiative in that way. We're very excited to be together today. Thank you so much for taking time out of what is probably a very busy time of year for you. And I'm sure there's a lot going on and the schedules are tight. And yet here you are spending time together with each other and with us. So thank you all for being here. Special thank you to our partners who are on this call and the meeting as well, from West Ed and from Fresno County Superintendent of Schools Office, and all of our partners that are joining us today. Welcome. And we'd like to just sort of kick things off today by just kind of going over a few housekeeping details, and I'll review the agenda for the day, and then we'll get started. So if you haven't yet, I invite you to please update your name in the Zoom window with your organization. This helps us to know who everybody is and where you're from, and helps us to do some good sorting with our breakout groups, which we'll be joining later on in the session today. So again, just beside your name, if you could pop onto the three little dots on the right-hand corner of your video window, and go scroll down to rename. And then after your name, I'm doing it right now, put your name of your organization in there as well, so we know where you are from. Well, it's great to see everybody today. We've got about a 90-minute agenda. We might finish a little bit early, but we've got a few really great things planned together today. First of all, we'll be discussing a bit about family engagement. We'll be exploring a presentation about family engagement, why it matters, and also just a bit more about what we notice as families are engaging together in play and math and science activity. We'll have some opportunity for each of you to share about what's been going on in terms of family engagement. What are your plans? What kinds of things have you already initiated? What kinds of things do you have in the works going forward? What kinds of things are you excited about? What kinds of things do you have questions about? Where might you need more resources? That sort of thing. So we really want to make sure that this time is valuable for you in terms of your opportunity to check in with your colleagues here on this call together. Naomi really will be sharing with us some resources for family engagement, just again bringing to our attention all of the various things that we can be using to support family engagement throughout our communities and across our projects. And then we'll have an opportunity to just kind of close with some final words. So before we sort of launch into the official agenda, we are on the brink of a summer season here. And so as a way to kind of just reconnect, I'd like everybody to think of one thing you are looking forward to about this summer. It's not something that you hate about summer. It's not something that you are just not looking forward to. This is something that really is a positive, it's an opportunity for a positive moment. What are you looking forward to about this summer? What do you love about summertime that's coming up in the next few months? So pop that into the chat, and let's have a little opportunity to reflect on that. We're not quite there yet. I know a lot of us are finishing school years. The weather is still, at least in the Central Valley, not unbearable yet. So so we're in a good time, but what are you looking forward to? Pop that into the chat and let's see what we're up to. Yes, wonderful things. This is probably a terrible way to start a meeting. Because now we're thinking about hiking and pool time and vacation time and beautiful weather. Congratulations, Erica, on the new grandbaby that's coming. There's wonderful beach time, just having some break, having some time off, plenty of sunshine. Juan, I'm jealous. Soccer tournament sounds amazing. Spending time outdoors, seeing family, long days outside. Yes, Deborah, the beach. We've got a lot of votes for the beach. Oh, and fresh fruit. This is a wonderful time to be growing things. Mm. Allison, that sounds like an amazing birthday week in a lighthouse keeper's house on the North Coast. Wow. Sunny weather and the beach, warm weather, outside time, time with family, grandbaby. And sure, starting school again and family, great food. Ah, wonderful things. It's important that we take time to celebrate in the midst of all this work as well. It's important to take time to um, nurture all of the other areas or aspects of our lives, relationships and time away, and the things that really fill us up and bring us joy. I really think that the work that we do is just an outpouring of all of that as well. So thanks for sharing those things. I'm inspired. But also every time we get together, this is such an inspiring group of people to be around. And I hope that today is an inspiring time for all of us. So as we keep going, just a reminder that this meeting is a community of practice. And I just wanted to highlight two of the words in that community. As we are together through these meetings and through our work, we are developing and increasing our sense of community. And community is about things that we have in common. It's about working together. It's about shared identity, and it's about shared purpose and goals. And in this work in particular, we all come together for the shared purpose and around the shared goal of improving math and science outcomes for children 0 to 8. And we know that that involves working with educators, working with their families, and in the many, many ways that our organizations support our communities and our neighborhoods in achieving this goal. And the incredible thing is that our community here stretches across the state. And so it's an incredible effort to be able to work in smaller rural communities, in larger, more urban areas. The reach of Count Play Explore is something that is powerful and meaningful. And the second word is practice. Practice can be interpreted in lots of different ways, but when we come together as a community, we are developing practices or shared practices that we all are employing, that we're all putting out there. And that involves resources that we use together. It involves ways of working with educators, ways of creating professional learning events for educators, ways of creating family engagement events. So the practices that we're developing together, you're starting to see them in the suite of resources that we are sharing. And so those resources come out of our practices, and at the same time, they help to support the practices that we engage in our work on a daily basis. So excited again today to share some more resources together, to encourage all of you to contribute to the conversations today. There's so much expertise in this room, in this virtual room, and in this space today. So please let your voices be heard. Use our chat at any time for questions or insights or ideas or further things that you're excited about this summer. So this is a space for all of us to connect and be together. And I hope that you find it to be a safe space, a space of trust, and a space where we can connect. So with that, I'm going to take us a little bit of a shift into our presentation for today, which is around family engagement and the idea that family engagement matters. And family engagement is, I think, be thought about in a couple different ways. In some ways, we have families that are engaging on a daily basis through everyday routines. Families engage as they prepare meals, as they get to school, as they conduct their daily routines and activities. And families also engage in sort of in special ways in which they are learning together. Families comprise members of various ages, from very, very young to elderly. And across those ages, there's opportunities for family members to learn together. And we know that that can happen through playful activity, through engaging in routines throughout the day with young children, getting dressed and making meals and taking care of pets, to ways that older children and older members in the family engage together through conversations and passing down traditions and passing down values that are in families. So lots of different ways that families engage together. Today, I kind of want to help us think a little bit about ways that families engage together in learning. And in particular, for our work together, in learning in ways that support young children's learning through playful, purposeful engagement. So to think a little bit more about learning, just want to suggest today that we think about learning as a social and as a cultural process. Learning is not something that just happens to you by yourself in your head. Typically, learning involves other people or involves your relationships with other people or your relationship to an idea. It involves change. It involves developing new ways of thinking, new ways of being around other people, new ways of relating to ideas or to things in the world. So the fact that learning is social and cultural, it plays right into the idea that it's an activity that families engage in, that families learn together. And today I'd like to draw on some work by Rika Rose Roque. She's a professor in Colorado at Colorado University at Boulder. And her work has really helped to look at family engagement and learning in three particular ways. The first is the social context. This is all about the relationships that are within families and between families. Also between facilitators who might work with families. So imagine that you are putting on a family math night and you have some facilitators who might be encouraging parents or families or caregivers to engage with children in certain ways. They might be facilitating some of that activity. And they're part of that social context that involves the different relationships that are happening. The second is the material context. The material context is, what are the tools, the things, the supplies, the stuff that you get your hands on during this sort of learning experience, as well as the space that you're in, whether it's a park or a zoo or the home or a backyard or a community center or a playground. The space really shapes what that learning might look like. And then the third is the emotional context, the feelings that are communicated and expressed, whether they be joy or anxiety or pride, as just some examples. So what I'd like to do is share a little bit more about these three contexts for family engagement. And then I'm going to share a variety of pictures with you. And we're going to have an activity where you get to sort of look for these things happening across these different pictures. So just a little bit more about the social context. This is really, again, the relationships within families and between families and facilitators. One of the core ideas of family engagement that we really would like to support, particularly in this work, is that young children are empowered to lead activity with caregivers, co-learning and co-playing alongside them. I think we've all seen family engagement activities where children are engaging, but family members are kind of standing off or not participating. When we think about the social context, family engagement can invite parents, caregivers, other adult members to engage alongside children while not sort of taking over the activity, where the children are still empowered to lead that activity, but they have opportunities to co-play or to co-learn alongside children. And one of the wonderful things that this does is it allows children to take on the role of the expert. We've all heard stories, and maybe we've had the experience where children are teaching us new things. They're teaching us how to operate our phones. They're teaching us how to program things, right? They're teaching us things that maybe we don't know about, but they're also teaching us about imagination. They're teaching us about joy, and they're teaching us about how to play in a carefree way. Children can take the lead and can actually serve as experts in family engagement activities. And adults can take the role of beginners, learning something new for the first time, learning to play in a particular way while following the child's lead. And then also, one of the wonderful things about the relationships and the social context is that that we can really start to see the goals and the processes of people who are engaging. And it's really important that we understand those goals and we make them visible, because if you've ever played with a child, you know that children may have particular goals in the play, and adults bring their own goals to it as well. And when we're looking at family engagement, we want to allow opportunities for those different goals to become visible and those processes to become visible. So part of that also involves documenting those things in ways where we can see what are the goals happening in these family engagement experiences, and who's taking the lead, and how is their co-play, and what are the relationships like within that family engagement experience. So in a nutshell, the social context is really important when we think about family engagement. I want to share a quote that comes from Rika Rose Roque and her work with family learning. She says, "How do we consider parents and other adult caretakers' roles in the design of the interactivity? Parents are learners too. But even in family-oriented experiences, children are still positioned as the primary beneficiaries, and parents are marginalized from engaging as learners." But what she says is that parents can be as curious, insecure, and playful as their children. As one mother shared in her work, "I'm not just a mom. Parents can play many roles, just such as a collaborator, project manager, a resource provider." So thinking about that social context and the roles and sort of the relationships that family members with children can play, it's wide and it's varied. And we want to think about opportunities where those different roles can occur and where children can take the lead in activity. The second context that I referred to just a bit ago was the material context, the tools and the space. And these are not just secondary ideas. The tools and the space are very important when we think about how we're engaging families. What kinds of tools and materials are we providing for a family engagement experience? And this can be familiar materials. Sometimes we like to call it a pantry of ingredients, like when you go to the pantry and you open it up and what do you see? There are some things that are very familiar, that are very common. You might use flour a lot, or sugar if you're baking. You might use some of these things that are very common, but you also might have some diverse things like, what am I going to use this cardamom for, this spice that's sort of, very, very flavorful? Or how might I use cinnamon in this? There's some other kinds of materials that may not be as common. They might be more diverse, but they might lend themselves to a particular way of thinking or a particular kind of activity. So when we think about the materials, and you'll see in the pictures as that I share in just a little bit, that there are some very carefully selected materials that can be a part of family engagement experiences, whether it's a playful math night, whether it's literature books, whether it's packs that you're sending home for families to play with or engage with, to learn through. The materials you select are important. How do the materials encourage exploration of math and science concepts? We know from our work with Froebel and the Froebel blocks that a very simple block can be an incredible tool of exploration, in particular as you compare it to other blocks and you look at the relationships between those. So think about the selection of those materials. And then in terms of the spaces that we're in, family engagement encourages us to reimagine home and community spaces as rich contexts for exploration, play, and learning. What we're finding through the exhibit work at the Lighthouse and at EPU is that these spaces that seem to be just sort of, sometimes it's a pass-through space or a lobby or a waiting area, can be turned into a space for exploration by families. So it takes a little imagination to figure out how to make that work. But it also takes a bit of creativity to think about what kind of a community space, or a space in schools, or a space in a library, or the space in the home or the backyard or the public park or the laundromat. How can these be spaces for exploration and learning? So again, materials has to do with the tools and the space. And then finally, the third context is really about the emotions of learning, the emotions and the feelings that are communicated and expressed. We know, if you're in a family unit, you might agree, we know that there are lots of emotions that occur within families. There's times where we're all getting along. There are times where we're frustrated. There are times where we have some conflict. And even in learning experiences, we understand that there are lots of different emotions that families may experience. There could be joy, there could be excitement, there could be anxiety or frustration when something isn't working right. There could be a lot of pride. So thinking about the emotional context that happens within our families is quite important. The social emotional health of young children, we know, is critical. And so thinking about what kinds of experiences might support emotional engagement is really important. In particular, one of the things that's very important to us is that we plan for wonder, for joy, for surprise, for curiosity. These are the things that inspire and motivate learning. When you see something that you kind of go, wow, what's going on there? And you're excited to investigate and think about it and look at it more closely. A great opportunity to build on science concepts that surprise, on mathematical concepts like patterns that just kind of blow your mind or baffle you, or just materials and things that you're playing with that just make you curious about how it works or what you can do with it. Second, another way that we can connect to emotional experiences or emotional engagement through our family experiences is to really encourage these connections to meaningful family experiences, or through stories that families may have, or through sharing traditions. Families engage in lots of meaningful activity. There are things that are very important to them. Our family engagement learning experiences should offer families opportunities to tell their stories, to um, to laugh together about a memory, to tell a story of a favorite vacation, or to talk a little bit about their different roles in the family and their identities. So this is a way to support the relationship, part of that social context, but it's also a part of the way to really encourage a healthy emotional engagement in the learning experiences across different members of the family. And then finally, it also, family engagement invites family members to express their creativity, to understand their emotions, to develop empathy and cooperative skills. So it's a way to really tap into the affective part of how we learn together and to draw connections to that can make learning quite a meaningful experience. So we're going to shift now to thinking about these three contexts in through some photos. So I'm going to now take the next few minutes to share a few photos. And I want to just sort of give a little preface. These photos come from an event that we were able to co-host with one of our partners, the Fresno EOC Head Start. And so these photos include children and families and facilitators and teachers. And so it's certainly a extended family, extended community event. And I selected these photos because I think that they provide opportunities for us to think about these three contexts, the social context, the material context, and the emotional context within family engagement opportunities. So what I will do is I'll share each photo, and then I'd like you to think about three kind of broad questions. And some of these there are several questions in one, but three sort of themes. And the first really is, who is in the photo and how are the bodies positioned in relation to others? So thinking about the physical bodies of the people there in their relationships. So thinking about that social context. The second is around materials. What materials are in the photo? Who is holding them and how? And where are hands and eyes directed? So that really has to do a little bit with sort of how materials are being used and how people are interacting with them. And then the third is, what are each of their facial expressions? And what are the emotions that they might be expressing? So what I'd like to do is, if you have either a piece of paper, or maybe you can open a note on your computer, I'm going to show each photo and give about 1 minute of just quiet for you to sort of look at the photo and take a look at these three ideas. I'll put these three in the chat so you have access to them as we go into the photos. And then after that minute, I'm just going to open it up for any insights that anybody would like to share. You can just unmute yourself and share that out. I'm curious to see what kinds of things stand out to you as you look at these photos. These photos are just, again, they're not videos, they're just photos. It's just a snapshot in time. But during that snapshot, there are some things there that I think can help anchor us in better understanding the social, material, and emotional contexts of family engagement. So let me post here into the chat. Hopefully this will work. Yep. So I posted the questions into our chat for everybody. And take some time, about a minute or so, to just think about answering some of these questions. And of course, you may not get to all of them, but think about the three stages of these. And anything that just jumps out at you that you noticed, and jot it down. And then we'll have a chance for any of you to share afterwards. And so I've got a series of photos. So we'll share each one for about a minute, and then we'll have a chance to share out, and then we'll go to the next photo. Okay. So here is our first photo. Okay, so let's pause there and feel free to share an insight in the chat if you would like to, or if you'd like to unmute and just share an insight, something that struck you in response to any of these questions about what you see happening in this photo. Thanks, Juan. Juan says that both mom and child are focused, engaged. You can see their gazes are both focused on the materials. What else is noticed? Hmm. Yeah, some nice comments about attention and giving the activity attention. Even sort of looking at the way that the bodies are arranged, they're sort of open toward one another. I like the idea that they're both in tune, kind of working together, even leaning towards and sharing and holding the materials. Yeah.
I'd like to add something. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. Well, I thought it was interesting. So just from looking at this, it kind of looks like the child is holding for the parent to attach something versus like the traditional way is like the parent holding and the child, quote unquote, doing the work. And I felt like that was a great point, just like the point that you made earlier, kind of thinking about what the role of the parent is and allowing them to be creative and allowing them to play. It seems like that it almost feels like that emotion is that the child is allowing their parent to play or even teaching their parent to play in this situation. And I thought that was really sweet.
Mm, yeah, thank you for that insight. Okay, we're going to go on to the next photo. Yeah, love the ideas and the comments in the chats, and thanks for the verbal comments as well. Let's see. Okay, here is our next photo. All right, so let's put any thoughts in the chat. What do you see happening here? Again, the questions are around um, facial expressions, emotions, materials, and contexts. Hmm. Yeah, there's lots of smile, lots of laughter. And it might be interesting, yeah, shared joy. I like that idea, Claudia. One is looking to share joy with others in the room, sort of extending the gaze beyond the activity to kind of share that out. And yes, bodies are at the same level as well. There's a lot of joy and wonderment. So one is looking at the robot, which is drawing on the paper. It looks like it's drawing circles with two markers. Also interesting to note that the other is holding two markers, perhaps emulating that two marker activity. So we could assume that the younger is sort of looking at this activity that the older is doing and kind of mimicking it, maybe in a way, but without the robot, sort of thinking about how do these two markers draw circles together at the same time. Uh, Lots of interpretation about what could be going on, in particular with that activity. I also love that the orange and red pens, the caps are just kind of thrown, just sort of strewn about. Like, let's get into this activity. We don't care where the caps of these pens are. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, let's go on to our next photo. We have just a couple more here. Mm. Feel free to add a thought into the chat when you have one. Again, also feel free to unmute your microphone um, if you'd like to share out with the group. Hmm. Yeah, great thoughts. It's interesting also to look at where the gazes are. It looks like the adult's gaze is at the shadow. It looks like there's at least one child's gaze at the adult's hand making the shadow. It looks like the child who is also making a shadow, it looks like that child's gaze is at the shadow. And it looks like the youngest child in the front is gazing maybe at the hand as well. So many things to look at, both hand and shadow, and then the interaction of the two shadows. Yeah, adult is involved in the activity, wonder, excitement. Hmm. Mm. Hmm. Okay, we'll go to, I think we had just another photo here. Yes. Well, Okay, well, feel free to put your thoughts in the chat or unmute your microphone and share out with the group. Mm. Yeah, there's a lot of interest in what's happening with the shadow. There's some co-creation or collaboration in shared holding. And if you've ever tried to hold something together with somebody else, there's a lot of movement involved and adjustment physically as you kind of connect with what the other person's doing. Yeah, a lot of similar action. Mm, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for engaging in sort of taking an intense look at a brief snapshot of family engagement in time. When we think about these three contexts of the social in terms of the relationships within families, between families, the engagement with materials, what kinds of things and tools and resources and materials, as well as space, are involved. And thirdly, what emotions are occurring as there is engagement in the learning. These are just three contexts that I think that when we think thoughtfully about them can shape the kinds of engagement activities that we provide, that we look for, that we ourselves engage with families as facilitators. A big thank you to our Fresno EOC partners for co-hosting such a wonderful event, to Alejandra on our team, who really led the efforts here for family engagement. Exciting to see lots of wonderful activities and resources that are coming out of this work. As I was preparing for today, I took a look as well at one of the spreadsheets that you all filled out that had to do with your plans for community engagement, family and community engagement, and for this extension in particular. And I love word clouds because I think they just are a quick way to summarize some of what we've been thinking about. And these are a lot of the words that came up in the cloud that were part of your plans and a part of the ways that you're thinking about this work going forward. It's just, I think, wonderful to see so many words that are around this sort of families and community and children engagement and learning. It's just very, very powerful work. Excited to hear about what you're doing and how you're doing that. So we're going to take now a time to have some more conversation about your plans and what you're doing. And what I'd like to encourage is I'd like to encourage you to think about these three contexts that we've just sort of explored. The social, that has to do with those relationships, the materials, those tools and resources and space, and the emotions that come with this work in your family engagement plans. So how are you exploring those things, or what implementation insights can you share? Maybe you've got an implementation plan or something that's happening that you want to share about, or an event that you've already had, or something that you might be planning to do. And maybe it's across a variety of different resources that you are planning that you are planning to use, whether it's family activities or book guides or resources or a night or an I'm ready video. There could be a lot of those types of things that you might be using. So think about what you'd like to share and how you might connect with the other groups in your breakout group. Ask some questions of your colleagues and explore any challenges or opportunities that you may have in your plans. So in just a minute, we're going to just move into breakout groups. And I think we made a few adjustments to those groups. So let's see, we are going to, Chris, which groups did we put together?
Groups 1 and 6 are together.
Okay, I'm going to say if you are group 1 and 6, you'll just go into breakout group 1. So if you are group 6, if you are with us from Modoc, Merced, or Riverside, right here, please join group 1. And hopefully we'll get you to the right place as we open up the breakout groups here in just a second. If not, just hang around here and we'll get you there, but you should be moved there automatically. If not, we will help you out there, but we'll take about 20 minutes or so in our breakout groups. And I will post this question here into the chat for everybody so that you should receive that. And then we'll get started. So if you give us just a minute, we will get the breakout groups opened up and encourage you to have a wonderful conversation. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks so much for having some great conversations in your breakout groups. I hope that you found ways to connect with others, to share your implementation ideas and plans, to ask questions. The sort of synchronicity that we find in these breakout groups, I think, is always amazing when we hear about other folks who are doing similar things or new things in different ways, inspires us. Hopefully you made connections with folks that you can follow up with as we continue to implement these things. Some fantastic ideas on how to take these ideas and take these resources into play and into your work to connect with families in your area. I'd like to turn it over now to Naomi, who will highlight some additional resources for family engagement. Naomi?
Thank you, Paul. Hi, everyone. It's great to see everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. So I'm going to share a couple things that I've shared before, but also dive a little deeper into how to access some of them so we're all comfortable and know where everything's at. So the first thing I wanted to just show, and I will email this PowerPoint out afterwards so you have all the links, is just where to access different things. I know we have a lot of Count, Play, Explore resources, and our partners also make some amazing resources. So we have different places for them. Let's see. So our first one is just the countplayexplore.org family site. This is where you're going to find the I'm Ready videos, the book guides, and the related activities, which I'll dive deeper into, like how to access those book guides and activities in a little bit. The next two links is on one of our partner sites, the Early Math Project site, so earlymathca.org, and they house our Count, Play, Explore issues. So we kind of refer them to those as our newsletters. They're those double-sided pages that have activity ideas to do with children for with counting, playing, and exploring. And then on the back side have STEM activities for families to do together. And then the next link is for information on how to host a family STEAM event. And I'll show that page just so you can see where to access one of the documents that actually groups a lot of our books together. And so you can get an idea of like what books together really can create a great family math night. Of course, you can create your own set of stations with all the different book guides that we have, but these are just some recommended pairings. Then the next link will be our CP resource folder. This folder has that huge Excel document that has all the different sheets on it that lays out resources by topic. That's been a resource that was sent out way last year, and we continuously update it with new stuff. And then the next folder is like buried within that folder, and that's the interactive exhibit guides. And those they're in that folder. There's 3 separate folders that are labeled for each exhibits. And I could show all this, but again, everything is hyperlinked here. The last thing I wanted to highlight on what to access is the Padlet that the Ames team created, so we can all engage online on what you all are doing for the interactive exhibits so far. On this Padlet, we will extend it and put some categories for like book guides and maybe some other categories so you can indicate what you've been up to in other areas of your family engagement plans. I wanted to highlight a new resource that we just created a few weeks ago.